This is the Thought Leaders Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Thought Leaders Podcast. I am with Miss Donna Adi, who you all are going to get to know in just a matter of minutes. She is awesome and phenomenal. And hello, Donna. How you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I am good. So let's just dive right in. Please tell the world who you are.
Okay, so I'm Donna, and I'm a mixed media illustrator, and I specialize in advertising and commercial work with fashion and beauty brands. And I've worked with brands such as Puma, Nike, Dior, Beaumont, and several others. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Okay, very cool. And where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Los Angeles.
And living now here in Tel Aviv, correct?
No, actually, I'm living in Paris. I'm just in Tel Aviv at the moment.
Oh, stuck here with the quarantine like the rest of us. Okay, well, I hope quarantine is going well. So the reason we have you on the show today is because you are doing just a ton of phenomenal stuff on Instagram. And would you mind walking me through kind of what you are on Instagram?
So, I mean, on Instagram, I basically post a lot of my passion artwork that I, feel like creating in the moment. And yeah, Instagram is kind of just a place for me to let out my creative feelings. And yeah, they get a lot of really good reactions from people. I give a lot of advice to other artists and inspiration and feedback. Sometimes I give feedback to other artists on their Instagram profiles. So my Instagram handle is Donna_Adi, if anyone's interested to see it.
Okay, cool. So I've always tried to get into the arts, but it's just never connected with me. But can you kind of walk me through what exactly, because you have a very unique style and it's very cool and I really like it. I recommend everyone listening to go check it out. But what exactly, what is your art like niche with your drawings?
So my niche is still a developing niche. I think that, now with the digital age, it's becoming a lot more popular. But I would describe it as mixed media illustration, where it combines reality and fiction, taking a photograph and illustrating over it to bring it a new life. Mm-hmm. And me specifically, it's, my background in animation and illustration combined with my background in fashion and photography, all combined into one.
Okay, awesome. So you're kind of combining two worlds. So what would be, and I know this is audio and video, so it's hard to describe, but to your best of your ability, what is a classic Donna Adi art piece?
So I guess a classic art piece of mine would just be something very vibrant, funny, a little bit sarcastic, and animated. So it really varies, but I guess it's just kind of like the interaction between photos with animation and just something with a vibrancy and life in it.
Okay. So I was doing, just looking over your catalog and again, it's really, really amazing. So the running theme that I've seen, and feel free to correct me, is you are taking celebrity and pop culture images and then adding a lot of animation to it. Would you say that is kind of my hitting the nail on the head there?
Yeah, I would say that I do find a lot of photos on the internet that inspire me. Most of them are celebrity pieces, and it's mainly because I do like, the accuracy of the photo, of like the planned out. There's a stylist and a photographer and a director all on set when they're planning out these images. So I do find myself more inclined to wanting to draw on those kind of images, but it's an array also of other style images.
Okay, cool. So would you, and I know this is probably a very hard question as you are an artist, but if you don't mind, take me through that creative process of you find a picture and then how it becomes an idea in your head into something out there in the real world.
So for me, it's mainly like something that will just catch my eye. It could be, on Pinterest or on Instagram, on Google, on, someone's profile that I see. And the second that I see the image, I usually know when it's the kind of image that I would draw on. It's not every single image I feel inspired to draw on. But sometimes I see something, I already see the art that's going to happen on there. So I'll find an image, or other times I'll have an idea and I'll look for the image that's right for that idea or photograph it myself. And, it's very similar to drawing on a canvas where I'll sketch it out first, plan out the composition, and then, go on board with all of the layers with the color, the lighting, the shading, the edits, the cleanup. So it's very much similar to painting on a canvas.
Okay, so you are actually drawing on how do you create the images? It's on an iPad, it's on, what is it on exactly?
It varies. I work on a Wacom and an iPad. So it depends what the photo is for. If it's something that's for Instagram, I can make it on an iPad. If it's for a client, I'm usually working on the Wacom because the technology is better with Photoshop. So it's a lot easier for me to create on that. Okay. I'm sorry for the background noise, by the way.
No, don't worry. We're at quarantine. Everyone knows that. We're at home. What are you gonna do? It's okay. So, what age did you start drawing and getting into art?
I started drawing at a very young age. I mean, I can't recall like I was 5 when I held a pencil, but I think it was just when I started to play with crayons. So I think as soon as any other kid who was holding crayons.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you do any training? Did you go to art school?
I didn't go to art school. To me, it's one of my biggest regrets is not going to art school. But I did, in high school, I was always in advanced placement art programs, and I was winning awards for my art. And when I went to college, I took some night classes, and I always stayed very close to what my passion is. But I never got a degree in art, which is, I guess, also good because now I'm very eager to keep learning, and maybe I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if it wasn't for that.
Oh, I like that. I like that take. I find that very interesting. So you're drawing all your life, right? And can I say, was that on traditional methods, canvas, oil painting, things like that?
What's the question?
So initially, when you started drawing, you were and painting and everything with us to do with art, you were doing it in the traditional methods, correct?
Yeah, I didn't start painting digitally until 2013.
Okay, so that's what I really am interested in. Can you take me through that transition from I'm going to paint on a canvas to, oh, wow, here's this iPad. Now I'm going to paint digitally.
Yeah, so I guess that like art was always a passion of mine. I was always painting on canvases. I, had an easel at home, an entire like corner for art. And I think it was when I was 23 years old. I guess my friend was actually working at Viber, and she was showing me these like sticker sets that they buy from artists. And I wasn't familiar yet with what digital art was, but I just knew that I loved what she was showing me. And then she kind of explained to me, oh yeah, you have to buy a Wacom to do this kind of art. And I got really obsessed with it because I love like the vibrancy and just the way digital art looked in comparison to what I was doing at the time. And I ended up like finding this guy in Tel Aviv who's a digital artist who is one of my first mentors and someone who I consider a legend. And he gave me some private classes of how to draw on a Wacom. And I remember being so overwhelmed with learning Photoshop and all of the different layers and, functionalities and the hand-eye coordination, because this is before, I don't know if Wacom had a tablet with a screen in 2013, but all I remember is that this tablet didn't have a screen, and it was years till I saw a tablet with a screen. But you would draw on a tablet with no screen, so kind of like on a paper, and then it would show up on the computer in front of you. So you would have to get very used to this like weird coordination that you would have to have with your hands and eyes. And I just remember it being very hard for me to figure out the program and how to do this, but I loved it so much, and it just kept going and I started to take like night classes as well to learn digital illustration. And after many years, now I have a career in digital art, which is pretty cool.
That is really cool. So how would you say, do you still do canvas painting and whatnot, or it's just mostly the digital?
So my thing, like since I was younger, is pen and ink. It's like what gives me the most endorphins. It's just like black and white pen and ink. And I still practice actually with Copic markers, watercolors, colored pencils, everything. I actually haven't painted on a canvas since 2011. And I know that I was 21 last time I touched real paint. And I don't know why I took such a long break from it, but when I'm going back to Paris, I'm planning on getting back into real painting. But I went to like a fine art school when I was a teenager, and I learned oil and acrylic, and I'm very excited to go back to it. But it's very similar to digital. There's a lot more shortcuts.
Okay. And you said that you love black and white, right? Painting in black and white.
I love the feeling of ink touching the paper with pen pressure. It's something, I don't know if any other artists have spoken openly about it, but that's really my thing, is just like pen and ink. And I can do hours drawing with that. And I also think that has a big attribution to my artwork. A lot of it is just the pen work.
Now, I will say that's very ironic because a lot of your work is very vibrant in color, right? A lot of the digital stuff.
Yeah, it is.
So how do you find that balance that, you're doing a lot of all this massive, really bright colors?
That's a good question. Yeah, I guess I kind of let go of the pen and ink. Like, I don't do it as much right now. My life is very much surrounded by what my career has been known for, which is what you see on Instagram. So I'm actually not doing a lot of my like personal passion work anymore. But I guess sometimes when I'm drawing on digitally, I'll digitally draw like ink, and play around with different character designs, and I still get it out of my system occasionally. But yeah, it's very different than what my pure passion started at.
Okay. I make that to me, that makes a lot of sense, having, the passion projects and the career. And speaking of the career, I would love to kind of get a walkthrough of, because you've kind of really blown up, and if you can just walk me through your career, because you've been working on some really cool projects with some massive companies.
Okay. So I guess we could start from the beginning, where I'm kind of like an entrepreneur from a very young age. I started out when I was 17 with a graphic t-shirt line, and I was designing my own graphics and kind of just like a one-man show where I would design, build websites, do my marketing, sell the shirts, haggle with my producer to get like good prices on my stuff, and eventually broke away and opened another like online store with a friend of mine, and then moved to Israel, worked for a big fashion designer doing her business development. So I was like in this fashion niche for 10 years, building businesses and working in fashion. And I eventually felt like I wanted to do something more artistic and less business oriented. And that's when I started drawing on images. I'm basically giving you a very short version. There are a lot more details. But I started drawing on images as a passion project, and I was posting it onto my Instagram. And very quickly, I was gaining a lot of traction online and getting a lot of attention for my work. And I myself didn't really know what I was doing because it wasn't planned. I didn't see, successful digital artists that's painting on photos, working for brand campaigns. I didn't have a role model to follow. I was just doing something that I liked. And so I kept posting it, not just because people loved it, but because I also loved it. And I think that, having both of those elements was very motivating. So I continued that. And I think it was within the first few months of just building my profile as an illustrator on images, I got my first client. And actually, I think before I got my first client, I got an email from the manager of J Balvin, who was a really big reggaeton artist. And she wanted me to design his cover. And I wasn't a business yet. I was still doing some freelance work for designers on the side. And I think it was at that point that I realized I need to start structuring a business around this, because I'm starting to get inquiries. It looks like I could get some side cash on this stuff. And anyway, slowly started generating more and more clients. And I think it was less than a year into my business, I did my first branded campaign with Nordstrom. Then I did one with 20th Century Fox for the movie Love, Simon. And it just kept rolling from there. I did something with Dior. I did just a lot of really cool projects. And, every time I got a project, I learned something new. I learned, whether it was to explore a new niche of art or inspiration, or a new term in my legal contracts, or a new, way of managing the business. Like I kept learning till I built a system, which, I now have. But it was a very cool experience to have to figure it out on my own. And, it's not something I went to school for, and it wasn't something that was already present. And, a lot of people are fashion bloggers today, or, physical fitness bloggers. And you can see that there's a lot of role models to follow and a lot of systems to practice. And for me, I didn't have that. I didn't know what category I fell into, but I figured it out. And it was a very interesting experience, to say the least.
Wow. Okay. So are there a lot of other people kind of doing what you're doing with the digital art, or do you feel that you're kind of the biggest presence in that space and people are following you?
What do you mean when you say digital art?
Yeah, kind of digital artwork that you do, right? You were saying how, if you want to be a fashion or a fitness influencer, you have so many role models to look up to, and you're saying here you didn't have that many. So I think it's awesome that you're kind of trailblazing your own path. But do you find people who have been copying you, or you are really just kind of out there on your own?
So I think there's two questions that you're asking here. One is about the copying, and then two is, are there other people that do exactly what I do, right?
Well, not exactly, but kind of in your area that you can kind of bounce off ideas and look to them for inspiration, or is there like a community, or it's really just you find yourself just out there alone?
Okay, gotcha. So I actually have felt that I have been alone in this world, because if you look at mural artists, there's lettering mural artists, there's the graffiti mural artists. There's like so many, not just in the niche of murals, is one thing, but then there's like sub niches in murals. And if you look in the fine art world, so many sub niches, and like the digital art space, the animation space, the character design space. Like there's a lot of these niches that you'll even go to school for and learn this one craft. And I felt like mine wasn't really a niche. Like there was no class in college of illustrating on photos. And I kind of, in the beginning felt like a lone wolf. Number one, in the beginning, I didn't know people understood the value of my work. I didn't know where I fit in the space, because this is before I understood that like my work is mainly in advertising. I didn't know who I was as an artist, who I'm serving. I also understood that my place in the advertising world is not because I'm making, like, drawing on photos equals advertising. It comes from my background in fashion. I had to work on a lot of advertising campaigns and making compelling images that would go viral. So that's kind of what happened with my work. It turned into something that works for advertising. So yeah, I kind of had to figure it out on my own. Till this day, I can't say that I've seen one person that's a mixed media artist that does just this and is working, on brand campaigns, internationally. But I have seen a lot of artists pop up recently. A lot of them are inspired by the work that I put out on the internet. And, I've seen a lot. Like I'm familiar with people that are in my space and finding inspiration from my work. And I also know exactly when I see it, because there are things that I would draw on my walls in my room that you don't make it up, like that stuff that's very much my identity that I've seen other people do online. And I have, 2.2 million hits on my Pinterest page. I have almost 200,000 Instagram followers. My work is very viral online. So I know that it's, people are pinning it, are finding it and collecting inspiration. So I think that my niche right now is growing. I've seen a lot of, new accounts, and I think it's really cool when someone takes it in their own direction. I really, really love seeing it. I freak out when I just see like someone that got inspiration from me and then turned it into their own world, That's phenomenal.
Yeah, I was going to say, so being this role model or inspiration to these other up and coming artists who are kind of doing similar things to you, is that something that is scary, or is that something that's, wow, I have a real impact out there?
So I think when you're a smaller artist and less experienced, it's a scary thing. You're like, oh no, someone's stealing my identity. And it's something that I went through when I was starting out, when I didn't know enough about the art world. I'm only 3 years in this space. I'm still very new. So I think in the beginning, I was a lot more like nervous about being copied and feeling threatened. And then I also learned like, that's just the way it works. You know, I kind of had to accept it. And obviously there's a difference between like cut and paste my work or finding inspiration, which is there are a lot of accounts that found inspiration and are doing really cool things. And I love it. And I even, you know, it's funny because I even found inspiration from them later down the line where I saw that someone that like, you know, openly started out copying a few of my artworks, developed their own thing. And then I'm like, wow, that's super cool. And I get inspired by them too. So it's kind of just like the flow. I think there's a fine line, and I don't recommend, whether it's me or a lettering artist, or I don't recommend copying someone and building a feed based on someone else's work, which there are many accounts that have been built off of my work. I don't recommend it, but I do recommend finding inspiration and trying to find your own voice in the art world.
Wow. Yeah, I think that was a great answer, I have to say. So don't copy people, just draw inspiration. Speaking of kind of your big things you work on, you correct me if I'm wrong, but you worked on Michael Kors for the Met Gala, right?
Yeah, and I did a graffiti campaign as well for them too.
Which campaign?
They had a graffiti campaign about 2 years ago that I helped do some work for.
Okay, so the Met Gala is kind of the pinnacle, you could correct me if I'm wrong again, of like the fashion world, right?
Absolutely.
That is the #1 event. Everyone's looking at it, and you got to work on that. What year did you work on it?
That was last year, 2019.
So I would love kind of an inside scoop on how was that, just even getting that email, whatever that was, hey, do you want to come work with
That
Michael
was
Kors?
very, very intense time. I've actually never opened up about what an intense time of my life that was, and I'm very fucking grateful. Sorry, I'm didn't mean to cuss.
No, you can. No filters here.
So that was during a time that was very intense for me. Like I was booking jobs like overlapping, and it was a time where I didn't also know how to say no. But I was supposed to fly to Chicago to give a speech on behalf of HP, like the tech company. And then 3 days, so I'm living in Paris, fly to Chicago, give a speech. And I was doing like a workshop for 3 days there, and then fly to Cannes for the Cannes Film Festival. And then I was doing a live show there. And this is all in a matter of 1 week, while also I booked the Met Gala. And I remember I already booked these other jobs, and the Met Gala came in, and I couldn't not take it. It's the dream for anyone working in fashion like myself. And, you know, artists I hope would appreciate it just as much as I did. So I took the job, and I was so excited. And it wasn't the first time that I worked with Michael Kors. I was happy to continue our relationship. The art director there is phenomenal, and it was just a great experience. But I remember that I flew to Chicago. I was incredibly jet lagged, and the Met Gala, it had to happen as soon as the celebrities got dressed. The photographer took photos of them, sent them to me overnight, not even overnight, within that time. I had to draw each outfit, and we had to release it within 1 hour before they like went to the Met Gala. And this is like Tiffany Haddish, Gigi Hadid, Zoe Saldana, Emily Blunt, and Bette Midler, and Michael Kors himself. And so I'm like not sleeping because I'm like,
wait, and you had 1 hour, you had essentially an hour to do all of these people?
I had an hour for each one. So they sent me 1 hour to send it out. And this is, by the way, I'm also giving speeches and doing workshops at the same time in Chicago. Right. So I'm, you know, waking up 3 hours earlier than my speech, you know, jet lagged, getting these pieces out, you know, going to the show, giving speeches, like trying to rush back to finish the Michael Kors pieces. And I have to say that I'm very proud of how they came out. And there was also a lot of pre-planning. So I wasn't doing this, you know, spontaneously. I actually planned out my ideas before. So I was able to like, you know, push out quality content for them. but it was very, very, very exciting. And I had a lot of adrenaline of like getting everything done and, working on that. So that was awesome. And at the same time, also preparing for I was doing a live show for Magnum, the ice cream company
Okay.
So at the same time, having to prepare for that show. So it was just that like 1 week of my life was incredibly intense and also a lot of fun.
So I'm glad that you kind of name dropped some celebrities here. So a lot of the work that you are doing is taking the photos of celebrities and adding your incredible take on it. So it's kind of a two-part question. Part one would be why is there a focus on celebrities when you do them? And number two, have you gotten reactions from these people and what do they think of your work?
Yeah, so I've gotten reactions from them. I've had a lot of celebrities actually share my work or follow me or, tell me that they like my work. So I've had like Hailey Bieber share my work, Gigi Hadid, Olivia Culpo, Tiana Taylor, Elsa Hosk, Sofia Vergara. I've also had like specific celebrities like hire me to do specific pieces for them, which is really cool. And I don't mean to pick celebrity images, and I'm actually trying to also break away from that because I do want to do other things. But coming from the world that I come from and, arranging photo shoots for big brands, for instance, I know that when I'm looking at this photo, it's not always a spontaneous image. It's very much well planned, and I love it. Like I love the perspective or the composition that was chosen or the idea and the concept, and I just want to build off of it. So for instance, when I see a Vogue cover and, it's with a famous celebrity, like let's say Kendall Jenner, it just like everything combined gives me so much inspiration and I want to sometimes just build on it. It's something I've been doing for years. I do love it. I am interested in, the next chapter of my art. I don't think I'm going to be doing this forever. And I actually think I'm transitioning out of it, but I just have a thing for it. And it really does come from working in fashion for 10 years. And, just like, this is where my eye is, my understanding, comprehension, and passion is.
Okay. Yeah, again, that, I think that's a really good angle. And you mentioned that you were thinking about kind of moving a bit away from the that niche that you're doing now. So where do you think you're going to head to in the future?
So I don't really believe in planning where I'm headed to, because I think when you plan, you start to hurt your potential to grow, because then you're putting limitations on where you should and shouldn't go. I can tell you where I'm inspired to be, which is I'm working now on doing more fine artwork. I'm going to be in a gallery in Paris starting next week. So I want to start moving more into like traditional painting. I want to start working off of images that are my own photos. I want to experiment with new mediums of art. I'm not sure if I'm always going to be doing what I'm doing. It's definitely still going to be present on my channels, but I'm building a YouTube channel now, as I said to you earlier, doing a podcast. I'm trying to evolve a bit, maybe do online classes, do more character design. I have like a series of photos that I took of coffee cups around the world where I want to draw cool characters coming out of them. There's a lot of ideas that I have coming up, which I'm very excited to start sharing. But yeah, I've been doing the celebrity thing for like 3 years now, and I love it. And, a lot of people are copying it. And I think it's a really good sign that it's time to start evolving.
Yeah, I think when, at a certain point you need to always evolve with anything. And I think that's great that you recognize that. But you did say you are going to continue to put these kind of new aspects out onto your social media channels,
Definitely.
right? Have you done that all in the past? Have you gotten reactions from your fans? What do people think so far?
So far, it's okay. I do like dabble, like throw in random things. Even I started putting photos of myself every now and then on Instagram, which is something I never used to do. And sometimes people love it. Other times people are not used to it yet, so it doesn't do as strongly as other images. But I believe that consistency is key, and the more that I be posting this kind of content, the better it would do. Again, I'm not going to now just be painting like tattoo skulls. It's still going to be in my niche. It's just going to be a bit more evolved.
Okay. And so now we're just speaking about the Instagram. I think we touched on this earlier. So first, Pinterest and Instagram are your two biggest mediums, right? Where you're posting things.
Yeah. And I guess now my TikTok is not actually that big, but
Which one?
My TikTok, it's growing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's, I am unfortunately not on TikTok, but everyone says I should get on there because it is a lot of stuff to see. But so you kind of started, right? What was that first motivation to post your work on these platforms?
My first motivation to post the work.
Yeah. Like why'd you go to Instagram and why'd you go to Pinterest right off the bat?
I mean, again, I was working in this field for a long time. So when I was working for a designer in Tel Aviv who's a very, very big and well-known designer. And one of the main things that I was doing was also managing her social media channels, her Pinterest, YouTube, and I understood the power and influence. And also back when I had my own clothing line, I understand that like posting things online helps build your audience and international awareness. So it wasn't something that I just decided to do. It's something more that's second nature to me of how to build a business. And I think that's also who I am as a person. It's not just about, doing cool art. It's also about how do you get it out there? And social media is a big tool to help artists like myself put out their message.
And did you think, or not think, but just looking back, did you see a gradual increase in the channels? Because again, as you said, over 2 million followers on Pinterest.
Not followers, 2 million new hits.
2 million new hits on Pinterest. About 200,000 followers on Instagram. Did this happen overnight, or was it a gradual increase?
Gradual increase. I wish it happened overnight. That would make my life last year.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's been slow and steady ever since I started. There's never been like that. A lot of people like to label me as an overnight success, and sometimes I wish it was that easy, but I haven't been an overnight success. I wish I was. That would be wonderful for myself, but it's been slow and steady since I started.
Okay. And recently, which I think is very, very cool, you did an interview with Forbes magazine, right?
Yeah.
So did they approach you? How did that all come about?
So that was through a friend of mine who connected us, and basically I don't know, they interviewed me. I've done many interviews before, but it was just a very standard, here's some questions we'd like to know about you, sent in the interviews, and I actually didn't know what an impact it would have had. I guess I didn't evaluate how cool that is at the time. So I kind of, now that I invested more in what I had to say, but that was pretty cool.
And that was was that your biggest interview to date, the Forbes?
No, I think my biggest was I got a spread in Vogue Spain in April 2020. The printed version. And I was in Spain and I got my hair and makeup done and dressed with a stylist and did a really cool spread, which I am very excited about that. I think I want to print. Yeah.
That is that's very, very cool. So that just came out about a month ago, right?
Came out a month ago. I actually need to get that printed for my house.
And how has the response been to both of those, actually, both the Forbes and the Vogue?
Great. It's been great. It's funny because I always wanted to have these kind of accolades, and once you get them, or not you in general, but me, for instance, I'm like, okay, that was wonderful. Now I'm ready for the next big goal. So I feel like I'm never someone that's able to sit and think, wow, I got this article. It was nice. And then, now I'm ready to work on the next big thing. But I sound like I'm not very grateful. I'm very grateful.
No. You sound like someone who's extremely motivated, which is very refreshing, because I think a lot of people are like, okay, I got to the top and now I'm good. And I think you're just striving to go higher and higher, which is very commendable.
Yeah, for me, it's a lot of people stop me in the streets in my community, and oh my God, I saw your Forbes article or your Vogue article, and I would have thought that I would be so much more confident and proud and think I'm so cool right now, but I kind of just feel like I'm the same person, still working hard and hustling, and and nothing really changed. But I do notice that people's reactions to me have changed, which is funny, but it's pretty cool.
Okay. And before we go, I know you said that you're kind of shifting a little bit with the content that you are going to put out. Is that kind of why you moved to Paris? Is that excuse me, to kind of focus more on those things, or it was just something completely different?
Are you asking why I moved to Paris?
Yeah.
So I moved to Paris with my fiance. Mainly, both of us. He got a good opportunity through work. I agreed that it would be wonderful for my art. It absolutely has been wonderful for several reasons. The exposure, the kind of exhibitions that there are in France, the style of classes that I can take there. Also the full isolation that I have. So I have zero social distractions, which is, I'm a very social person. So I feel like I am not as productive when I'm in LA or Tel Aviv, but in France, I have maybe 2 friends now. So I'm a lot more productive, which is wonderful for my career.
Okay, awesome. And kind of, this is really before we go. I think you've touched on some really, really cool points and how you've you set out on your own. You're definitely a trailblazer. You've essentially created your own niche in the art world on Instagram and Pinterest. And if you had any advice for anyone, whether or not it's art or anything, but kind of doing what you had to do, which is be the first one to try a new vertical, any advice for them?
Anyone that's starting a new passion project?
Yeah, but specifically about putting out content into the world.
Okay, so my biggest advice is, and I actually preach this a lot, because I'm a big supporter of everybody, whether you want to start cooking or you want to start, I don't know, making a YouTube channel on car manufacturing, I don't know. But I'm very, very big on this. I talk to a lot of my friends about starting their own passion project or side hustle. And my biggest advice is stop thinking so much about what you're going to do and just do it, because I feel like the reactions that I get from my friends that want to start something is, well, I want to do, I want to fix bicycles and I want to bake cookies, but I don't know where to start, and I kind of just feel like whatever you think you're going to do, you're probably not going to do that, because whatever it is that you're going to do, it's going to evolve, and you're going to see how it's going to evolve. And that's why you just have to start with one thing, keep going. Maybe you'll quit that. Maybe it'll evolve into something else. And the idea is just do something that you love and let it lead you, because there's so much that can happen when you start something. So, for instance, a friend of mine wants to start a baking channel. And my advice is just start doing it, because you don't know what's going to happen. Maybe in a year or 2, it's going to turn into cookbooks, or, there could be so much that's going to happen. Or maybe it's going to be not baking, but I don't know, open a restaurant. You just never know. So my biggest advice is stop overthinking what the end goal needs to look like, or what everyone else is doing, or why you can't do this, because it's not realistic in this world. It's that stuff I hear all the time. You have to be realistic. My advice is just start with something and don't worry about the end goal, because most likely whatever you start with is going to evolve into something else, and you just need to follow it. So, and try a lot of new things, be open-minded, and, see where it's going to take you. It might take a few years to evolve. It might take 1 month, but just start and don't give up, keep going. And, and also don't copy others, find inspiration, because that's the best way to evolve as your own brand and individual and career. So that would be my advice, because I think starting is the hardest part.
Okay. Thank you so much. This was really fantastic. And again, thank you so much for joining me.
This is the Thought Leaders Podcast.